Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka podcast.
Baka. It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka. We are an anime podcast in space that watches an anime every 2 weeks, and then we talk about it here on this podcast like we're a book club in space. And then we turn that discussion over to you in space to continue in space. And this week we watched Space Dandy. Who's a dandy guy?
Did we watch it in space? Okay.
To help me discuss it, I need the help of my co-host. And first off, we have the Tim to my Eric. Great job. Jeremy, how you doing?
Awesome show.
Awesome show.
I'm doing pretty good. So I think another anime that I thought was from the same time period as this, but I was way wrong, that I like is Outlaw Star. So that would be my anime recommendation of this week.
All right. And we also have the Aqua Teen to my Hunger Force. It's Jason. How are you? He's back.
Doing well. I'm back.
Yay!
I'll stick with it. I really love Overlord. I think it's a great shonen, and also it has some great philosophical underpinnings.
Yeah, you've been the champion of that one. Even when Jeremy fell off, you kept going.
Mm-hmm.
Overlord.
Mm-hmm.
Are you still watching it in the latest season?
Well, I finished 4. Have they started
yeah.
season 5 yet? Because I haven't heard anything.
No, I think 4 is the latest. Yeah.
And then my name is Troy, and my anime, for my taste, I'm picking My Hero Academia, our first anime we ever reviewed on the show, only because I've been rewatching it with my son, and I still get hype. We're at Sports Festival, and Sports Festival is great.
So, a quick aside, because you are currently still watching it, remember the Baka breakdown we did for My Hero Academia?
Yeah.
Is there another moment similar to that or better than that you feel is better, that was something that caught your attention?
Not what I'm watching right now, but in the future, I can definitely say All Might versus All for One gets up to that same level, and also Deku versus Overhaul. Is an amazing fight. That season's kind of hit or miss, but that ending fight is really good.
Okay. I might have to catch up.
All right.
And we lost a team member.
Hey, we have replacements now. Yeah, subs.
I'm back.
I watched that one. You guys did a really good job. And yeah, good.
Thanks.
Good job for
Ash.
simping. Ash, that's right.
Simper for Senpai.
Yep.
Yeah, he was great fit and able to help us out there. So much appreciated.
Yeah,
Simper
much
for
nicer than
Senpai
me.
podcast.
Much nicer than me.
Aw.
All right, so we're gonna talk about Space Dandy now. We're gonna start with our non-spoiler review. This is again a retro pick, so it's not really. We usually pick more current anime, but it's the start of the year. We just did a movie for kind of our vacation, and now Jeremy and Jason both get a rules-free pick, whatever anime they want to watch. And Jeremy has chosen Space Dandy, one none of us have seen. I've seen the first episode. But so Jeremy, your non-spoiler review, what did you think of Space Dandy?
I love it. This is fantastic. It took me back to all of those late nights watching Adult Swim on Toonami and enjoying things like Aqua Teen Hunger Force and C-Lab and Tim and Eric and Robot Chicken and like just all the great shows, and many of which have this sort of like, I think Jason described it best in a previous chat we had, of like a fever dream, right? Like it's so unusual and unexpected, the directions that they go with the stories. And I mean, Tim and Eric really hit that on the nail. or hit that nail on the head. But this show has its moments where I think it does the same thing. Maybe not quite to the level of absurdity that you got with some of those other shows, but it gets pretty absurd. And I love it. It just reminds me of like I want to be up really, really late where you're starting to get so tired you can barely keep your eyes open, and you're watching this show, and it's just, I don't know, that I think that's the prime way to view it. Or if you drink, maybe drink and watch it. You'll really like it. But I love the episodic nature of it. But and it's strange because normally, if I go to an anime, I want to see the story, I want to learn about the world and everything. But I kind of knew just from the reputation that this anime has that going into this was a comedy pick. It was my intention when I picked it. And so I knew that there was not going to be any real substance in storytelling beyond perhaps what you might encapsulate in revisiting story tropes on an episodic basis, right? Like hit some form of storytelling with each episode. It almost feels like completely different directors, where sometimes it tries to be touching and deep and complex and emotional, and other times it just tries to be dumb and funny. And so yeah, the variety was great. I kind of wonder if it was not beneficial to watch them so frequently. Excuse me, I have a bit of a cough this week. To watch them so frequently, or if it would have been better to space it out, maybe one every few days or one a week, just to kind of absorb the absurdity. But I'm still not really settled one way or the other for that. But I really love it.
I'll say so. I start earlier than you guys just because I'm taking notes. It takes me longer to watch the anime. And I watched about an episode a day, except for at the end, I started jamming in about 2 in. And I think you're right. I think like 1 a day felt better than 2 back to back, because it was just like a big spoonful of sugar instead of just a little bit of a snack every time.
Yep.
All right, Jason, what are your thoughts?
Maybe I should have spaced it out more. Man, what a waste of time. I have never checked the time on the play as often as I have with this one. I was so bored. I don't remember smirking, let alone smiling or laughing once. I could not
Welcome back, Jason. We have missed you.
Dandy is the worst anime character I think I've seen all of last year. He encapsulates everything that I can't stand about that 70s, 80s pompadour style with a huge dose of dumb. And
yes,
it's just the jokes were not funny. None of them landed well. There was so much artistic leverage with like the abstractness that I just didn't get, or I wasn't drunk enough to enjoy. But this is not one that I would go back to finish this first season.
Oh, I'm finishing it. Yeah, I'm excited to finish it. So I did enjoy it. I knew I would. I think I mentioned in our last podcast, I've seen the first episode and I've always wanted to keep watching. But one thing that's great is you don't need a 3-episode rule for this. Watch the first episode. If it lands, you're probably okay. You're probably going to like it. It's about the same every single time. It's a little bit wacky, a little bit bizarre. Some really great animation that has a nice budget, and it shows it off every once in a while. And it's also got some abstract art going on, and leaves you scratching your head a little bit at the end. If you get to that first episode and you're like, I'm digging what you're selling, baby, then I think you'll like it. But I don't think you need 3 episodes to figure out on this one.
I definitely don't.
I do want to add that, like, I watched the first 2 episodes in sub, and I was having a really hard time connecting with the character. And I love watching anime in sub. That's my preferred. So I will almost never deviate from that. But I decided I'd give dub a shot and see if it connected better. And in the 3rd episode, it made a huge difference. And from then on, I actually really liked the comedy in it. But in those first 2 episodes, they did not. I could not find the humor in them. They came across as dumb to me because of that language barrier. As an interesting point from that too is that apparently this anime was first aired in English. From what I was reading about it, is that it was actually intended and made for an American audience.
Very, very interesting. I will say that I'm a little worried about this podcast episode because there's not really anything to talk about other than the general structure and maybe like some of the weird episodes they did. Like nothing matters from episode to episode, really. Even characters go through character arcs in an episode, and the next episode it doesn't matter anymore. They haven't changed. They're not making new decisions and growing.
Don't
At
worry.
least in the 13 we watched. We only watched the first 13.
Don't worry, Trey. I have plenty to argue about.
Okay, I know. I'm being fair about what I saw. I found this as a really great palate cleanser, something I could just turn off my brain, watch it. I found it very funny. I enjoyed the tons of pop culture references in it. I've been debating if I was going to say this. I enjoyed it as a piece of art, and this is a piece of art where someone is making something like there's an episode about 80s anime showing their love for 80s anime while also making fun of 80s anime. It has that kind of stuff in it that I enjoy, and I enjoyed the ride. Okay. Opening and closing. Now, Jason, you gotta admit, those are some bops, man.
I enjoyed the ED. The song was great, and the visuals very much matched the show. It was very abstract. There wasn't much sense to it, but it was kind of slow and methodic and kind of showed off the characters a bit. The OP is just meh. I just didn't like it.
I found them both extremely catchy.
By the way, I just want to mention real quick. As soon as I read, well, actually, no, I made a point to skip the opening monologue every time after episode 2.
Boo to you, sir.
Yeah.
If it started playing, I would pause and then find my place after the OP and then start playing.
Wow.
Not only did I watch it every time, I would then repeat it for the rest of the day. Coming through space like his pompadour.
Oh, wow. I loved it. I thought the visuals were great because they really emphasized like the alienness of it. That was another thing I really loved about this anime is that like it comes across as alien. There's several episodes where you're like, wait a minute, this isn't Star Trek or Star Wars where the aliens are just another type of human.
Right,
these aliens are truly alien sometimes.
Bizarre. Well, I can't say which. One episode made me queasy. It was so alien to look at. I was like, this feels like I feel weird.
Yep. And I love that. And the OP just kind of, I thought it emphasized that too. Just showing like some of the weird aliens in the background and stuff. The outro, I think I have my own theory and just, I have my own theory. I'll mention it once we get to the spoiler section. And I think the outro lends great support of that theory. That's as much as I'll say for
now. They're fire. They were great. I danced. Not only did I listen to them, I danced to them sometimes. And like I said, I would then repeat the intro to the point where my kids were throwing things at me like, shut up, we get it. It's space. That joke worked for me every time.
Well, I think one of the most ironic things about it is that that's what I complained about. Like the first thing I complained about in Licorice Recoil was the cop who's like, I gave you this mission because I am the cop that gives you this mission or something like that. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was basically the same exact format as Space Dandy in space. You know, you repeat the adjective as a further description. And I love it here, even though I hated it there.
There's something about delivery. We'll talk about the narrator more in the spoilers, but the best part about him, he's doing like a Bob Newhart, I'm here for my
Yeah.
paycheck, I don't really care, I'm just reading these lines impression. And then he's saying this. So it sounds like he's just like in space, I guess. It just, that worked for me every time. That he wasn't like super invested in it. He was just kind of like, he's a dandy guy in space.
I got the vibes of like I'm watching a documentary. Like the guy's just doing the narration
Yeah.
over.
There's just it's not high energy like most
Yeah.
space action narrators would come with. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not much investment.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, before we go to our spoiler section, our next anime, Jason's Rules Free Choice, is Gintama Season 1, first 12, 13?
I'm pretty sure 12.
First 12 episodes of Gintama. We also didn't announce 13 episodes of Space Dandy because we didn't know it was 26.
But that's actually 26 is both seasons combined. 13 is the first season, so we were okay.
You're right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Gintama is what we'll be watching next and discussing in our next podcast episode. So now that we go into the spoiler section, if you don't want Space Dandy spoiled for you, the first half or the first season, now would be the time to go watch it or listen to us spoil it and argue about it.
I don't know how much we can spoil it. Like the jokes, yeah, sure, you may know after listening to us like what some of the jokes were, but we're not going to be able to capture them or the silliness of it.
And I've already decided I'm not going to go into like deep, in-depth, detailed recaps because the plot points aren't needed to be known by like the third episode. Like it doesn't matter what they did in episode 1 when you go to episode 2. So yeah, you should still listen. It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Spoiler warning drop then. Spoiler warnings. All right. So, Jason, I think the biggest disconnect is you're just not getting that Space Dandy is a dandy guy in space.
In space, man. He's in space.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So stupid.
So dumb. It's so dumb.
Yes.
It's just. God, what?
But it's intentionally dumb. Like it knows what it is. Like that's the thing that I think.
But that doesn't make it funny. That's like the internet meme of it loud equals funny. It's no. It causes hurt ears. It's not funny.
I think it's more clever with it than just being loud, though.
I think clever is a word that should not be used together with Space Dandy.
Not the character.
100% disagree.
Perhaps. The character, yes, I agree. He's not necessarily clever. But the writing of the show, I do think, is clever.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, let's get into it and find out.
First episode. But like we said, before even the OP plays, there's that intro. Except for episode 13 didn't have it, and I almost rage quit. And we've expressed our feelings enough on that. And then the OP plays, and then we come to. We meet our main character, Space Dandy. That's his actual name. Yeah. Explaining to his robot, who is either an advanced robot or an either unadvanced robot or a really powerful vacuum. It's never quite figured out.
No, it is explicitly stated. He is an advanced robot, but an older model, and he's like an iPhone 7, basically, where you can't update the software anymore.
But he's also just a vacuum cleaner.
But he's not just a vacuum cleaner. He has vacuum cleaning abilities, but he also is able to do things like navigation,
right?
General AI. He's more advanced than just because there is an episode that establishes that there's some AI robots that are specific appliances. He is not an appliance, and that distinction is made.
I don't think that distinction is made. I think he is a vacuum primarily, just like
they're
an iPhone
literally
7
having a conversation.
Right, but that's his claim. He's like, no, I'm not a vacuum cleaner. I'm a robot. And they're like, you're a vacuum
He's
cleaner.
embarrassed about being a vacuum cleaner.
No,
that's it.
Bill called him he's an advanced model. He's not a vacuum cleaner.
Advanced model of what?
Of a general AI advanced robot.
Of a vacuum cleaner. He's an advanced vacuum cleaner.
Okay, I disagree.
With AI capabilities.
Okay, look it up.
It doesn't really matter what which one he is. The point is he's drawn as a vacuum cleaner and then
And he
does
loves
advanced
vacuuming.
things, and he does love vacuuming. So it's like it's a running gag that he.
Okay, first thing it says in the wiki is QT is a robot vacuum cleaner.
Okay, that was not made clear in that specific episode.
I thought it was, but okay.
Oh gosh, this is gonna be this is supposed to be a short one. I was like, oh, we're not gonna have anything.
Jason's back. We've got to get like all the arguing that we didn't get to do in the last 2 episodes out now.
We haven't even got to the character that I'm trying to introduce. Okay, so our first scene of Space Dandy is he's explaining to his vacuum cleaner / robot how boobs suck. It's all about butts. That's his intro, even though Space Dandy loves boobs.
Oh,
and that's
man,
separate from his love for boobies.
And it was this intro scene that made me immediately hate him.
Are you an ass guy then? Or is like, which is it?
No, it wasn't.
Oh.
No. It was just that he's having this conversation that he's so self-centered that he needs to make sure that he has this pontification to his vacuum.
It is not pushing forward that Dandy is a great guy. Like, he's supposed to come off scummy in this scene. That's important. He's a scumbag.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't like him.
All right.
Sometimes they're funny to watch. It's definitely a taste thing, though.
All right, let's talk about Space Dandy. Jeremy, your thoughts on Space Dandy? He's your favorite character.
I love this character. I get a kick out of watching him. The fact that he has absolutely no substance and all of his answers to everything is exactly what I hate in every other anime. It's the willpower. It's the just do it, baby. It's the all of those things that I hate. He does, and because he's an idiot, it like shows that they are absurd. Like only an idiot would do these things, and so I appreciate that he does that, and I think it's funny. It's like he's making fun of those tropes in that they've drawn them into him. I also love the fact that so many of the jokes revolve around him, right? Like just the joke about the restaurants and boobies and like that's so important to him. And the way that he reacts when things, the way that he reacts so ridiculously over the most juvenile things is just hysterical. There were many times that I saw like Kelso from that 70s show in him, just many times, and I actually enjoyed that character as well. And so there's it's funny sometimes to watch a character that isn't really intelligent and doesn't pretend to be, and they just have like the most naive, silly, juvenile appreciations and joy in life, and just to see them fall, get back up, trip over here, sometimes succeed, they're entertaining to watch. And so I really enjoyed that with him. There were also some really great scenes later, like where there's 2 of him and they're arguing, and it's just the back and forth was killing me. I just love it because he's such an idiot. Like, what happens when you compound that idiocy back and forth? It's just hysterical. So yeah, he stole every scene he was in for me. I love his style. I love his attitude. It's hysterical. It's dumb, but it's great.
Okay, Jason, what are your thoughts? Opposite everything, right?
Basically. I couldn't stand him. To have the show focused on this, like if he was a side character, I think I might appreciate the dumbness and the I'm doing dumb things, but it's affecting the main character. No, this guy is the main character, and I have to endure every stupid thing he says. And the fact that he's just this attempting to be suave, consistently focusing on the female form, and like he's constantly broke. And he's just not relatable, so I just don't understand any of the jokes surrounding him. He's just unbearable to be around.
I don't want to hang out with Dandy, but I do enjoy watching him flail
he's
around.
Unbearable to watch. He's unbearable to watch for me.
Okay. I'm definitely more in Jeremy's camp. He's a scumbag. He's dirty. He's rotten. He's lazy. He has moments of golden heartedness, which when the episodes bring those out, those are fun. He's an idiot. He's just this is with the risk of sounding pompous, and this is gonna sound pompous. There are people in life who just have a little of obliviousness that you can just tell they enjoy life. And I get so jealous of them sometimes. That sounds really terrible, and I am terrible. I'm sorry. I apologize for being a jerk. But like, I overthink things so much that sometimes I'm like, man, it must be beautiful to be like Space Dandy, where you don't sweat the small stuff and you get
you don't sweat the big stuff either.
He does not,
baby.
But he is skilled at. He has skills. He has
all the skills,
talents. He works as a joke that I don't even find. There's characters like this, or there are characters who are a joke that's like they work for an episode, or they work for maybe a movie. This joke worked for me for 13 episodes straight. I enjoyed watching Dandy every single time be an idiot, make horrible choices, miss completely obvious things. He's being hunted by an entire army and is not even aware of it. Of course, they're pretty bad at it, but anyway, he's a joke character to take us through some fun stories, and I think he works. He worked for me.
So it reminds me a little bit of when we did that episode with Senpai Senpai about Jojo, yeah, and how one of the things that was recommended was you just have to turn your brain off, and I have such a hard time doing that when it comes to like if there's a story involved or if there is some kind of play of ideas that is going to, I guess what I'm saying is if it's not episodic and it's not intended to be dumb from the start. But because this is intended to be dumb, I kind of found myself doing that, and it was fun in this show. So it's weird for me to recommend that because I have such a hard time doing that. But I think maybe that's what you got to do to enjoy this, is just know that what you're coming for does not require a lot of thinking and analyzing. You literally have to just sit back, eat popcorn, and laugh at the silliness.
That's it. It's too silly. I don't like silly comedy. It doesn't have to be smart or highbrow for me to laugh at it, but it's got to make sense, and I have to connect with some semblance of the reality of it. And as we get further into this episode, I'll point it out, but like there's just nothing this anime offers that I can connect with. And if I can't connect with, then I can't really understand where the funniness is coming from. And then it's not funny for me.
So I will say, like I said, I enjoyed this very much, but I definitely understand why it won't connect with everyone.
I mean, this first scene where they're talking and he's like, there's enough, enough breaking the fourth wall. We got to get back to the story. It's like, that's...
Oh, I forgot about that. That was amazing.
That was one of the first moments where I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely not going to like this. Because like,
they called out.
They make a joke and then they make another joke on top of it. And then they just kind of keep going with it and then call it out. And then like, it feels like 3 10th graders at midnight under a tent with flashlights going, it would be so funny if this happened. Oh yeah, and then this happened right after that. Oh my gosh, and then like this spaceship could that's what it sounds like. And I was just like, I can't, it's just not for me.
I wouldn't agree with the 10th graders, but I definitely see like a comedy troupe that's
I'm sorry, you're right.
Or coming up with silly things.
You're right, not 10th graders.
Oh no, you're going to take it even lower.
I meant 10 years old.
10-year-olds. I knew you were going to say it. Predictable, Jason.
I wish we had watched Gintama at the same time right now, because I'm very interested, because I've seen some of Gintama, And I'm very interested to see how that handles you differently, which is very spoofy, Spaceballs, Mel Brooks, I think, comedy. And a lot of fourth wall breaking, a lot of just pointing out that we're doing something dumb. It'll be interesting. This fourth wall joke, my first thought was beat Deadpool to it. Man, setting the bar. I love a good fourth wall break. I have always. Ryan Reynolds is the master of it, but it was cool to see it here. I was like, nice fourth wall break. And they didn't do it too often. The narrator intervenes a couple times. Okay. I had forgotten about that joke.
That's too bad.
Now we need to talk about QT, his lovable navigator, advanced robot / vacuum cleaner. Jason, why don't you take this one first?
I actually kind of appreciated QT. He kind of kept some sort of anchor as far as storytelling. A lot of the antics involved him like trying to talk sense into the people around him, which I kind of appreciated because like in my mind, I'm going, no, you're being an idiot. And I bet this thing's going to happen. And then the thing would happen. And then QT's like, no, we can't do that. We got to, and I think that was the other problem. None of the jokes were imaginative. I saw all of them coming. Anyways, QT I think deserves a medal for having to endure.
You didn't connect with anyone, but you saw all the jokes coming. You connected with something.
That seems. I think that's a fair statement.
I don't think those are mutually exclusive. Yeah. Like I could see where the writing was going.
Yeah, maybe.
For instance, there's a moment that will come up where there's two dandies walking, and I go, "Oh, well, his special machine is going to obviously pick the wrong one." And of course, what do you know happened?
That's called foreshadowing, not lazy writing. They set that up and told you that was going to happen through the story.
But all the jokes are set up that way, and it's just like
that wasn't even a joke. That was just a plot point.
Yeah, I don't know. I usually see a lot of stuff coming, but there were some of the jokes that caught me off guard, especially some of the twists in the story.
But he turns into Dr. Gel, and I'm like, oh yeah, he's probably going to turn into one of the two, and then what do you know? He did.
Well, yeah, that was a joke. That's just part of the way that this episode, like the formula.
Then maybe
it's like saying I don't like the punchline.
Yeah, I don't like the punchlines.
Okay, here's a joke that worked for me.
Okay.
And it starts with QT. So this is why I like QT and what I thought he brought, because he's the straight man of the group, even though he's also his own idiot. And I thought they balanced those two things really well. QT reads a bunch of data and spits out this strip of paper, and Dandy rips it off and looks at it and goes, "What does this say? I can't read this." Even though, we get the impression they've been flying together for years, and this is episode 1. We're being introduced to their world and their relationship, and then this subversion of, "Oh, I'm the confident captain. Tell me what's going on, robot." And he's like, "I don't know what's happening." And the robot's like, "I don't know what it says either." And I laughed. That was good.
Yep. Yeah. I found QT to be like essentially the person that, like you were saying, Jason, wants to try to rope everybody in out of the nonsense and into doing what would be sensible, but doesn't really care enough to try. Like QT gives up like that. He just basically is there to whine while everybody continues doing what they're doing, and that's it. Which was entertaining in its own way, but for me that kind of put him in a back seat a little bit because he wasn't necessarily contributing as much to the jokes as Dandy. I thought Meow played off of Dandy a little better, and so even though he was kind of in the background too, when he was in the scenes, I really enjoyed his presence. But with QT was just I don't know, felt a little bit light, a little bit less entertaining to me.
All right. Our two heroes fly to the Hooters of this universe, and it's called Boobies, which makes me chuckle every time. It's like they weren't even trying to make it be cool. They're like, no, this is a low point for people to visit. Like, this is so stupid.
The worst.
And it's his favorite thing in the world, to the point where he gets asked, if you had unlimited money, what would you do? He's like, I would eat at Boobies every day so I could get free points to eat
on
more
my
at
Boobies card.
on my Boobies card. So they go to Boobies, and Boobies is, if you've seen a trailer of Space Dandy, you've seen Boobies, because it's almost featured in every episode and like every gif of it, every trailer shot. Boobies is heavily featured. And there's a girl named Blondie who shows up. She's at every Boobies.
I thought her name was Honey.
Oh, is it Honey? Maybe I wrote it down
think it's
wrong.
Honey. Yeah,
I think you're right. Honey shows up at every Boobies, even though. So I can't tell if we're always going to the same one or different ones, but it doesn't matter.
Makes me wonder if there's some big conspiracy where like the waitresses are all cloned.
And we learn Space Dandy's job is he is an alien hunter, in that for some reason they're just trying to register all the aliens out there in the universe. And if
he's literally going around abducting different like life forms.
You abduct an alien, you take it back, you have it registered, and then you just let it go, and they can go home. It's not violent, but they do throw them in cages too. It doesn't matter if it's sentient or not, as long as you bring in a rare alien so they can register it, you will get paid. So they see, basically, it's a cat. It's a talking cat. It's not even very humanoid. It's like a cat on hind legs with an iPhone, who's taking
wearing a sarong
and taking shots of the waitresses with his camera. But he has a booby sticker on his cheek, so they think he's a rare alien. I love that QT comes up with a book, and Space Dandy's like, aren't you a robot with a computer? Why do you need a book? He's like, oh, I can't hold data. So they chase this cat, and this cat, they capture him and take him to be registered, and the sticker falls off, and he's a Beetlejuicean, which Danny's just says he's a cat.
Doesn't QT tell him that looks like a Beetlejuicean before he go and chasing him?
Yes.
Yeah. And you can clearly see he's got a sticker on his face, but he chases him anyway.
He even gets the sticker on his own face, and at that point he's like, oh, that's what that was.
So now it's time to. He has a long name, but they named him Meow, and then we find out at home he's just called.
Oh God, his name is Meow 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 Meow.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Meow 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 Meow.
Meow 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 Meow. It's so dumb, but it's
gonna
great.
be a long one for you, Jason. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is rough. Just like it feels like I'm in a courtroom reliving a trauma in order to convict the person who put me through this. I have to retell my terrible experience.
Usually when we talk about these comedies, we're all on the same page and we laugh together at the jokes like this. It's usually a 3-person thing. Sorry about the dog.
Not today though. Now we're just like,
and I'm trying to hold it back, but I haven't. I didn't write down most of these jokes, and
well, I had Tanya watching these first two. Yeah, I had Tanya watching.
What did Tanya think?
She actually really enjoyed it, and she said that like she was laughing at them, meow 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 meow, and when they first revealed like that they were going to a restaurant called Boobies, she started cracking up. And the more that she saw Dandy, and I was dying as you guys were just like, oh, he's a scumbag. Oh, he's so horrible. You're right. Absolutely. But Tanya said I'm Space Dandy. So that's probably why I love this character.
There was about like all the booby stuff. I'm like, oh, this is going to work for Jeremy. This
is right up my alley. I love it.
The monster alien when it transformed. Yes. I was like, well, Jeremy's in.
Just the silliness of it and how it's like he's just so focused on the boobies, and I love that. I think that is the funniest thing. It's great. So yeah, she liked it. She got a kick out of it. It worked better for her too when I put it in dub, and I kept showing her scenes because she didn't have a chance to watch the rest of it with me, but I kept showing her some of the best scenes, and she was getting a kick out of them too. And she's pretty difficult to make laugh usually, so I was kind of surprised. But
Well,
yeah.
now I know we can't be friends.
Yeah, I know, right?
All right, Meow. What do you guys think of Meow?
He's just a cat version of Dandy. Like I did not.
Yeah.
I kind of liked. Okay, no, that's not true. I was starting to like his episode where they go to his planet.
Yeah.
But they just derailed every time he tried to make some sort of character building comment or like piece of information. Like we'll get into it when we get to that episode, but man, it just frustrated the. But he's. Ugh, I'm gonna post every time we move to a new location. How do they find us? Like, how many times you got to play that joke?
4 or 5.
It was like 7 or 8 times. It's like,
Maybe.
Can we move on with the episode? No, gonna revisit this joke. Great, here we go again. Anyways, no, I not my cup of tea.
Well, I got a kick out of Meow. I got a kick out of Meow. I thought that some of the artwork, especially for Meow, captured him and captured the humor surrounding him so well. Like in the zombie episode, when Meow gets infected first, and they're like, "Oh, he's got no life signs," and the camera keeps showing him, and he's still standing there, and just the way they drew him was so great. I was just dying. And there were several times where like Meow's expression it hit me the same way that well-drawn expressions from the little girl in Spike's Family.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like when she would have her expression and it would just completely change the tone of the scene and make it really, really funny. Meow did that several times. And so for that alone, I really, really like this character. But I also enjoyed the fact that he almost came across as a sort of like petulant, lazy version of Dandy, right? Like when you have a group of people, they will always find how they relate to each other and slip into certain roles. Even though he is like Dandy, he can't be like Dandy, not exactly, because that role's taken up because Dandy's there. So he kind of slips into second gear Dandy, which is like, I'm all lazy and irritated because you're Dandy. You're the better version of what I want to be. And so it was really entertaining just seeing them go back and forth because of how the tone was just subtly different. It was enough that I thought they were distinct.
He's a taco dandy.
A taco dandy?
Yeah. Because
like
Dandy's fairly
dandy?
outgoing. No, Dandy's outgoing and willing to like put himself out there for things, and he likes to sit in his room and play on his phone.
Yes.
See, so I have a very special, different view of Meow than you guys, in that Dandy is this guy who refuses to be tied down by anything. His whole thing is I'm free. I have my spaceship. I have a robot that serves me, and I'm going to do whatever I want. And if I don't want to do it, I'm not going to do it. And then Meow comes along, and he has to take care of Meow because Meow's a parasite. he is the stoner buddy who lives on your couch and won't leave. And Dandy doesn't get rid of him. Sometimes he does, but mostly because he enables Dandy's worst intuitions and stuff. Like, yeah, let's talk about girls. Let's eat all the food and read comic books. He allows Dandy to be that worst version of himself, and so Dandy lets him stay around. But Dandy's actually better without Meow. But Meow does get some character growth, but it doesn't matter the next episode. And that is one of the shortcomings of the series, that anytime anybody grows, it doesn't matter the next episode. We're not seeing them now making better decisions. He's right back to doing what he was doing before. I did like his episode. I thought it was great. I love those kind of stories, and I thought that he did a fun spin on it. But we'll get there.
A lot of times when they execute on these trope stories, they do a surprisingly good job. better than I would have expected for how silly the rest of the anime is.
So I'm gonna reveal one half of the secret I've been keeping. That's not really a secret. So there's two directors. The general director is Shinichiro Watanabe. The other director I won't be able to name, but he is important, and I'm not gonna reveal till later. Shinichiro Watanabe, famous for Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. Very much a guy who likes to experiment and twist subversions and genres and mix things together. And here I feel like he's been giving a blank check, and by going with the comedy route, he doesn't even have to make it matter. Like, he can do whatever he wants, whenever he wants, as long as he keeps it funny, which obviously is subjective, whether that happened. But that's very interesting that I think that this is his 2014 project.
That is interesting. So that explains a lot of the artsy fartsy stuff.
Yes. Yes,
yeah.
it does.
Very interesting. Okay.
The references to like George A. Romero and films and all that kind of stuff. That's very much his bag.
Cool.
Okay. So now we have Meow as part of the crew. He's staying on the ship. And he's like, hey, no, I know a planet where we can get an alien. And this sets up most stories in this anime is Meow being like, I have a hot tip. Where'd you get the hot tip? I read it in this free magazine I found or whatever it is. But he's like, yeah, we have to go to this place. Let's just hit the warp drive. And he hits the warp drive. Well, their warp drive is broken. So they go to some rando planet. Meanwhile, as the narrator has told us, Dandy is being hunted because there's these two empires who are at war. I don't remember their names. It doesn't matter.
The Gol and something else. Yeah.
But the Gols want Dandy for some reason. And the guy put in charge of this is Dr. Gel. And he is a gorilla with
the dumbest design I've
G
ever
monocle, like a pimp hat, pardon the language. And his spaceship is the Statue of Liberty head with a adult gag in its mouth. Yeah, thank you. I'm pretty sure that's a Planet of the Apes reference because he's a gorilla. But that's Dr. Gel, the last real character we had to talk about. What are your guys' thoughts on Dr. Gel and this whole subplot that's always in the background?
Dr. Gel.
Breaking him. I'm sorry,
I know. He almost felt like oh man, now I can't remember his name. I was just thinking about this earlier. Like, what does he remind me of? For some reason, he reminds me of a really dumb version of the evil doctor something in Mr. Gadget.
Okay.
I can't remember the name.
It's Cad's cats. He had a cat.
He did have a cat.
I can do his voice.
I'll get you, Gadget.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
And it was just the same gag over and over. And
bada boom.
Yeah.
Ball gag.
Nice.
Thank you.
I didn't understand why the head of this ship was the Statue of Liberty's head. Frankly, because if this is, never mind, I'm not even going to get into the logic of it. That's just no point. It's never explained. So like, why even focus on it? I just didn't find it funny.
It's clearly going to become a mecha, right? Like,
yeah.
In this season 2, it's got to become a mecha. It's almost got to.
Okay, but why would it have a gag on it?
Maybe they don't know what that is. Maybe they just like, hey, we need a lot of
so there's no reason.
Ports on it.
Good.
Well, you remember there was one episode where the face opened up and it was full of weapons, and so I mean, who knows what it's gonna make? It'll
maybe
change.
It's a super weapon. Who knows?
Yeah, it'll be a big cannon.
Yeah, he just felt like a really dumb version of the. Yeah, but I don't know. Besides that, he was fine. I mean, he played his part, which I think the most entertaining part about him was his conversations with the Emperor, because the Emperor was just as ridiculous. I,
A flaming skull.
okay. It didn't make me smile and it didn't make me chuckle, but I did find it a little entertaining that he was going to annihilate an entire planet because his overdue book was causing him spam calls. Like that was decent.
I like that too. Yeah.
Anyways, Jeremy, what do you think of Dr. Jill?
Out of all the characters on here, I think Dr. Gel was the one that I had the hardest time with. There were certainly funny moments, more than a couple, but he just was really weird. Like, for me, he took things to the level of absurdity in his character design, in the role that they played of constantly bringing the Seventh Fleet to try and take out Dandy, and always either retreating or dying, or being destroyed by this flaming skull guy, the general.
The general.
Yeah. So, like, for me, that joke, it didn't get used a ton, but it still kind of felt a little bit old, felt a little bit stale for me the second or third time it happened. Although it did intrigue me, because I was like, wait a minute, you're dead. Why are you back? And so that kind of got my gears going of like, what could really be going on here? I did like the fact that his assistant, Dr. B, I don't know, my personal theory is that stands for banana, because he looks like a banana, like his head. So, and I love that, like, the combination of those two is actually kind of funny, where his assistant, Dr. B, is actually more competent than he is in the majority of the time. But then when Dr. Gel really gets into it, like in the, I don't know if it's this last episode or the one right before, I think it's the one right before it. And you really see Dr. Gel shine. Like in that episode, I was laughing a little bit, a couple of the others. But yeah, he's probably my least favorite character. Just because it feels like that level of absurdity, that threshold is passed a little bit too far with him for me.
I think for me, a lot of his storylines, I was so into what was happening elsewhere, and you knew this wasn't gonna matter.
Mm-hmm.
That it was so side material that I was like, okay, can we get on with it? But I really did enjoy the joke. There's this trope in older animes, Sailor Moon, so many, where it's like there's the big bad villain, but they're always on the monitor. We never actually interact with them, and they have the main bad antagonist of our story who they are talking to, and they always have an underling right next to them. It's like they have to have this power structure in so many anime, and I love they're playing on that, and then turning it into almost a workplace comedy of being a middle manager. And like, oh, that guy's he's so cheap, and he just won't give us the weapons. Oh, he's on the phone. Oh, what did you say? That joke worked for me, playing off of very old anime tropes and turning it into something new that I can relate to. I thought that was funny, but for the most part, when his stories with clients were coming up, I was like, let's go back to Dandy. That was a little bit better.
Yeah. I definitely see the Rita Repulsa in his design.
Yeah, like Voltron.
Over the top.
Yeah. Except for completely fair. And I also like that because he fails so often, he actually gets killed, which never happens in those old animes. Those guys never get punished for failing over and over. They lose every episode, and the bad guy's like, well, next time, don't you fail me again. This time he actually would be murdered for his failures, but still have to come back. All right, on to this absurd story. We're gonna go a little quick here because this doesn't really matter. On this random planet they're at, there's a rip in time space. So Dandy tears at the string, which sends them flying through, and then they're at another planet, and then they take the teleporter down, which takes about a half hour to work.
I love that joke.
You just gotta stand still and wait for it.
Yes. It's like, why? Why use it? Seems so dangerous,
It also reminds me of like old Star Trek, because the special effects weren't very good. They did have to stand there for like 10 seconds to go through the whole
You're right.
Next Generation, it's wham. But in old Star Trek, don't move. So that worked. Then they go down, and basically it's a planet full of monsters, and the monsters start eating each other and getting bigger and bigger as the next one comes out. They wake up a giant robot. It battles a giant goo monster. QT accidentally teleports one up to the ship and starts chasing him. That Jason, you gotta admit this was beautifully animated. Like objectively, this was good animation. Like they're flying through space on rocks and actions. It was so good.
I thought it was beautiful.
No, everything was kind of mushy as it moved. The colors were kind of stagnant.
Well, no, that they do that when they're like when action gets so frenetic, they back off the detail, right? So they can show that motion so much faster.
No, look at any trigger animation. They're so much better.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily compare it to Trigger. Trigger is known as like the beautiful studio.
He said the word objective. If I'm going to be objective, it is not objectively beautiful in comparison to other forms of anime that I have seen.
Okay, well, let's set a scale then, because if Studio Trigger is like 10, I would say this is still like a 7.
I'd relinquish a 6.
Okay. When you hate completely.
Anyway, the result is Dandy comes up with this perfect idea. He has a bomb in his ship, and he tells QT to press it, and it'll blow up all the monsters, the whole planet, everything. QT's like, what about us? Oh, yeah. Oh. And so they die. Now, I can tell, Jason, you don't like that joke. But you have to appreciate that the anime is telling you right now, this is stupid. This is a stupid show, and don't take it seriously, or you're not going to like it. If you are like putting a lot of thought after this moment, after a guy literally blows himself up with a nuclear bomb, the anime warned you from this point. And I know you had to watch it. I'm not saying you. I'm saying anybody else watching. Like the anime very clearly tells you this is a silly, stupid show. Enjoy. And I think this moment I think this first episode's a great showcase of the rest of the show. I just wish more anime did that of like, we're going to show you how stupid we can be or how smart we're going to be or what you're looking to, we're going to give you the perfect sample size of what the rest of the series is going to be so you can judge for yourself if you want to keep going. I really appreciated that about this. I think this is one of the best first episodes of an anime ever because of that. It's such a perfect encapsulation of the series.
And this is the moment that instantly disconnected me from caring about anything that happened in this anime.
Fair enough.
One, it set the precedent that nothing matters. Nothing these characters do matter because everything is off the table. There's no reason to care about any danger that they're ever in. So because I don't care about that danger doesn't connect with me in any sort of meaningful way. So I can't find the comedy in any of these quote unquote dangerous situations or a monster's coming after them. It's like, oh, well, I'm just going to see him in the next episode. It friggin' turns into undead. Like, anyways, same with like ship. Like the monster gets teleported onto the ship and wrecks the ship and blows up, and it's like, okay, well, I guess that doesn't matter either because he's just going to get a new one the next episode. You're absolutely right. This anime warned me you're not going to like this.
Yeah. See, now I read it a completely different way. I read it as, wait a minute, they all just died, but I know there's more, so they're going to come back. And what was that string he pulled? And it got my brain, the gears started going, and I'm thinking, what is happening here? Are they going in like multiple dimensions, like parallel universes? And then when I watched the outro and I saw the cubes and there's like multiples of them coming out of the cubes over and over again, I was like, I think this is parallel dimensions, and I still think it is. And I absolutely love that idea because to me what that does is it realigns, it like shifts the perspective on all of these episodes because yes, they die. Yes, the individual characters aren't going to have their arcs matter in the next episode. They don't always die, but we perhaps shift to a different dimension or a different universe. But to me, it's like if you were to pick up a multiverse comic, right? And you get a glimpse into, well, what happens in the Deadite universe? What happens in the universe where like Batman laughs, right? Or what happens in all of these weird universes? You don't necessarily need for it to be a story of just one universe. And at that point, I started thinking, I wonder if there's going to be things that connect these universes. And I can't say that I found anything that connected them, but it made it easier to be okay with each episode being a completely encapsulated story, because for me it's like, well, this is that issue, this is that story taking place in that universe. We're just glimpsing what this version of him would be like experiencing these events, and then we move on to the next one. And yeah, it completely changed my perspective when I considered that possibility.
It also gives me, to kind of touch on Jason's point, that nothing matters, but it gives me a Rick and Morty vibe, which is very nihilistic. The whole theme of the show is nothing matters, while the characters are trying to find or grow to a point where something can matter, which is interesting because that's a multiversal show.
It is.
Which it uses to say, if I die here, it doesn't matter. There's another me right here that will,
because they're aware of it. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, it gave me a very nihilistic theme, if there is any theme to carry through all this, is that nothing matters. But I don't think it's a bug so much as it's a feature. Jason wants to go on so bad. All right, we're gonna go through these episodes pretty quick because the details just don't really matter.
Right.
All right, so the next episode, after failing to turn in an alien, I think they tried to do Meow again, and Meow still did not register.
Yeah.
Meow has a tip on fancy space ramen that must be made by an unknown alien. So they go to Boobies, because you have to, and then they go to like a ramen mall in space where every shop is ramen, and they try all these ramen places. Meanwhile, Dr. Gel is chasing them down because Meow keeps posting on social media where they're eating, which I thought was a great roast of how people have to, especially in 2014, update. Here's where I am on social media.
Yeah.
I thought the joke worked, but I get they made it a lot. At one point, they get attacked, and the alien lady who does the registration, Scarlet, has a great action scene. I thought, again, another well-animated action scene. Beats up a bunch of bad guys, but it doesn't matter.
It was an okay animated scene.
Okay.
I did find it. I did find it mildly humorous that the whole reason he was approaching her is, one, he knew who she was, but two, that he was looking for money.
Yeah. And the hitting on her, and then like, can you spare me a few bucks, baby? So stupid.
Yes, he's pathetic.
It's so funny. I remember all these jokes. I just didn't find that. And then you guys were like, "Oh yeah, that was so great."
That was great. You're remembering them better than I did, but when you bring them up, I laugh again. And I'm not. I'm honestly not doing it to antagonize or make it worse for you. I really am not.
Oh, I know.
Just genuine.
Yeah, they eventually find. They find where the ramen's coming from, and there's a portal to another universe where this guy is on a meteor making ramen, and since no one comes, he just sends it through the portal now, the wormhole. And him and Meow go there.
Say he'd been there. He's been there for like,
yeah.
I can't remember if it was. I thought it was. Yeah, it was millenniums. And yet he like describes how he learned to make ramen as
on Earth,
back on Earth.
Yeah, he eventually found his way to Earth. After a tragic backstory.
Far in the future, or does time pass differently in his dimension? I wonder. That was one thing that it crossed my mind when I was watching this one.
My first thought was, where is he getting his materials?
Yeah, maybe they float in on some other kind of wormhole field.
Speaking of the far future, and now having revealed that Cowboy Bebop was made by the same director, they use Wulong in this, which is the same currency from Cowboy Bebop. And I wonder if this is far future of Cowboy Bebop, a cinematic universe.
I love it.
Yeah, that would just taint my vision of Cowboy Bebop.
See, it actually makes me like it more. Like
Cowboy
this is what it
Bebop
becomes.
is beautifully animated, especially that. I know it's from the movie, but like the broom fight scene, that was just absolutely gorgeous.
Yep.
Can we talk about that one? Anyways, moving on.
Doesn't have enough humor.
They invite the alien to come back with them. He declines. They go home. Meow doesn't get to eat his ramen.
And they close the wormhole on him, so now he's trapped. Nice work, guys.
He could have come.
Wait, did they close the wormhole? I thought they just left.
So
no, it was closing.
Going through the wormhole just destabilized it, and it was starting to close, and that's why they had to run out of there. And Meow didn't get a chance to eat it because he ended up spilling it everywhere going through the wormhole. And then Dandy makes fun of him for not being able to taste the most wonderful ramen ever.
This was the episode that I watched with subtitles, and it just yeah, I know, it was great. And it wasn't it felt like it was trying to be more emotional, and like with the backstory of that alien and everything, like it really felt like it was trying to be more serious. And I remember thinking, this is weird. I thought this was going to be a lot more humor. Didn't really land as much for me, but I still kind of blame that mostly on just watching it in subtitles.
It's on the dub. It's just he has such like the classic old man voice. I went and I traveled. I had this sad backstory, and then I learned to make the ramen. Now I just make it with a tear in my eye.
Oh yeah, he cried into the ramen. That's why it tastes into the so ramen.
Yeah,
so friggin' weird.
All right, the next episode, this actually gives me so long to control the fish. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy vibes. Especially because it starts with QT feeding them with poison food because he's buying it from the future when it's super cheap, but that also means it's super expired. And it's just they feed it to Meow and he gets sick. That's a very British humor kind of thing of like, hey, I got this cheap food and it's rotten. They go on an alien hunt. Oh no, they hit the warp. I remember why. Dandy has a boobies card, but because they're out of food and it's about to expire, so he decides to warp.
Like 2 hours.
Right.
Yep.
And they didn't fix it.
And I love it because like he tries to avoid warping at all costs all the time. Like he does not want to warp, but as soon as he learns he's only got 2 hours left on the booby card, warp.
And they instantly crash on a planet. And I love that he's like, maybe there's a secret boobies here. He goes out to look around the planet.
It's so dumb.
But they find a young woman being chased
by Toss. Her name is Mommy Toss.
Mommy Toss. Being chased by these hideous alien monsters. I love the second time Danny pulls out his gun and starts firing wildly and does nothing with it.
Uh-huh.
And it's classic like Roy Rogers gun. It doesn't look like a gun. It looks like a kid's space toy.
A ray gun. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But we also get scenes of like Dr. Gel arriving and then finding out there's an alien down there so dangerous. You never want to die that way, so they run away. And then they show the picture and it's the girl. Yeah. And eventually the monsters he always forgets he has a translator on his wrist. And he turns it on. They're like, "Hey," and their English voices are going, "Hey, dude, we're like trying to warn you. What are you doing, dude?"
A lot of them have Southern accents too, which is cracking me up. Yep.
Yeah, they were trying to warn him about the monster, and then she's getting ready to eat Meow, and they find her, and she turns into a giant.
Just like boobs explode out of her.
Naked boobs.
Yeah.
Thousands erupting out of her. Because at first her chest
she becomes
just starts
horrifying.
Swelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. and she does eat Meow. So they jump in the escape pod and they leave him. But then they remember the boobies card was back there, so they go back to save Meow. Maybe.
Meow.
Totally. And the escape pod can turn into a mecha, and they battle it, and then they feed it the poison food, and it gets sick and throws everything up. And they take it to the alien registry, and they get paid a lot of money, and they forgot to just rescue Meow.
So like Meow is still inside
Meow's
of it.
Gone.
Dead. He's gone.
And they're like, we forgot something.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, and the next one is the zombie one. They have a alien that looks like an alien that is known, but they don't recognize it because it's slightly off color, and it bites Meow. And Meow gets sick, and they take him to the doctor, and the doctor's like, he has no life signs. We'd like to run further tests.
And they've got like this super sexy nurse that Danny just won't leave alone. He's like hammering the help button. It's cracking me up.
He's trying to admit himself to the hospital. I'm gonna admit myself here, baby. They come back the next day, along while being chased by bounty hunters from Dr. Gel, and it's a classic zombie movie. He picks up QT, starts bashing zombies with him, but QT gets bit and turns into a robot zombie.
I know. You're right, Jason.
Why is that funny? It's not.
Because if there's robots, zombies don't work.
Yeah.
And the fact that they just skipped over that fact to make it work is funny.
Yes. Like they don't care.
It's like someone drew angry face around his eyes on his screen. It's like, that doesn't make a robot a zombie.
It was all in how they redrew each character. Well, but I love what they did with this episode. Like, they took the concept to the most absurd level. Like, where the zombies, they don't continue eating people. They start becoming their own civilization.
Yeah, we'll just eat yogurt, and that'll cure my zombiness.
One second. Hold the thought. So Space Dandy gets away from everyone, turns into a zombie except for Space Dandy. He gets to the roof. He jumps in the helicopter. He's safe. The helicopter pilot's a zombie and bites him. And then the mid.
How is he flying it?
The mid pause stops. We're only halfway through the episode. We have finished the zombie story, but we're only halfway through the episode. That's why this episode works for me.
Yeah.
As soon as that mid break, Space Dandy showed up, I laughed so hard. Like, wait, what could you do after this? And then they did. They just take it so far. Again, this gave me Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy vibes of just taking something silly and going further and further and seeing how ridiculous you can make it.
Yes. Like, how long can you keep this alive? Like, the fact that they even so they go back and they talk to the zombie because now they actually can communicate in zombie grunts because that's a language.
Yes. Very expressive.
And they find out they can eat yogurt and stop eating people. And so they start doing that, but they also have you see that all the zombies start doing this. And so they sort of become a new zombie civilization that is just kind of working everywhere. But they're still trying. I love the fact that they're getting their insurance, their life insurance, because they're all technically dead. That is so great. And go ahead.
Yep, the life insurance starts sending out zombie hunters to kill them because it's not illegal to kill a dead person.
Right.
But then the zombie hunters get bit and they go bite the life insurance people. So then no one just cares, and it becomes a zombie universe with no war, pure peace.
That's how you get peace.
And then the narrator becomes a zombie, and that's the end. And then it says directed by George A. Romero. Classic.
Yep. I got a kick out of this one. This was where I was like, okay, this has to be multiverse. This just has to be multiverses. And I'm loving this.
None of that works for you?
No. What's frustrating is that we get to the end of this zombie apocalypse universe-wide, and then we kick up the next episode, everything's fine. And I'm just like, well, then these past 3 episodes have had no impact on any sort of story, character building, or anything to do with rooting and that's I think that's where it's losing me is there's nothing rooted in anything relatable for me to laugh at.
Right. I mean, this is basically a deconstruction and roasting of the zombie genre as a whole, but not anything related to character growth or a real story. You're right.
Right.
All right. Then the next episode, there is a new alien that keeps getting away from hunters and making them look foolish with online pictures. And Dandy goes after it, and it's a little girl and their species can put you inside of a stuffed animal for 5 minutes.
Mentally.
6 minutes.
6 minutes. They can put your mind
transfer consciousness.
Yeah. And so Dandy goes after her, and she gets him, and he goes inside her stuffed penguin, but he still manages to capture her. And then after the minutes are up, he gets his body back, and she agrees to go to the alien registration if he will take her to a location. But his ship has been towed, so this is a road trip episode.
Actually, really kind of like this one.
I knew you would. I had a hard time with this one because it like shifted away from the comedy and tried to tell more of like a sweet story. Like for me, this reminded me of Transporter. It reminded me of like any time that you have a story where somebody is hostile to their ward and they're supposed to take them somewhere negative. And then that story, they become, they start to love the ward or affectionate of the ward, or they care about them enough to where they don't want to see them follow that trajectory. And instead, they send them in some good way, and they have to protect them along the way. And so for me, it was like, this is the most well known of like the different tropes that they use of types of storytelling for me. I like that type of storytelling, but it's just not what I was expecting from Dandy.
I like that. Here, let's show a softer side of Dandy and actually, give some sort of, connection. No, I don't like that. Get that out of here. Show me more of the abstract planet blowing up and killing Dandy. Ha! That's so funny.
Yes.
I like both, Jason.
If it was shorter, I probably would have liked it more. But it seemed like it was just too stark of a contrast. I don't know. Maybe that's all it was like it shifted from being so absurd and silly to being a totally relatable story that I've seen before.
I liked that Dandy let his emotions get the better of him, of his I'm going to do what I want to do attitude. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even really need to recap the plot. I mean, you can tell it's a found ward story.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen The Mandalorian?
Right.
That's basically what happened. I guess that's why I like something like Space Dandy is that it can tell just these short stories, and it can do a sweet story one episode, and it can do a zombie story the episode before, and I can enjoy both. And it doesn't have to be 12 episodes of one thing. I can just have small, and that's why I said it's a filler,
palate cleanser.
Palate cleanser, because it doesn't matter. It's just small, entertaining stories. I find the zombie one works for me. I found this one works for me, and there's one episode in here that doesn't really work for me, but then I was fine. I was like, cool, you tried something different. I didn't like it. Let's go on to the next thing. See if I like that.
I mean, there's plenty of moments. There's plenty of moments in this episode that I can't stand. The one that really stands out to me is she transfers him because she's upset at him in the train station, and he's trying to do something nice for her, but she hasn't found out yet, so she thinks he's abandoning her, and so she does the tropey anime girl thing of I'm going to do something, violent and then run off. And then she's being taken by these guys that she made a fool of. And in penguin form, not only does he jump a ridiculous distance, but then he flies and in midair somehow rockets himself by doing a somersault and then like barrel roll type move to knock out another dude.
Mm-hmm.
I just
This was
So
actually explained in the
confused.
episode. If
That
Dandy
he could
wants to
fly?
do something, Dandy does it.
Yeah. Well, you know,
Baby.
baby. The one thing that I do think was,
I hate
you know,
you so
a possible explanation was the fact that the girl's like, that's weird. Normally, when I transfer consciousness, you know, of a person, they're knocked out, and it takes them a while to actually come to. Whereas Dandy was like, boom,
The
instantaneously.
narrator said that most don't do anything because they're too embarrassed.
Oh, is
So
that
they
what it
wake
was?
up-
That's right. He just
Yeah.
has no shame.
Yeah,
That's what
Danny,
it was.
no
Danny
shame.
just can't think about stuff, so he just.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
All right. The next episode starts with let's talk about all of Dandy's surfboard collection.
So you know he's gonna use them.
And they're like, "Are you just a poser? Why do you have surfboards?" He's like, "No, I'm the real deal, and I only surf the big waves, so I can capture that one endless summer." That line got me so good. That was so cliche and so perfect.
And the fact that they ask him like, so what was the story? He's like, no, I pulled that out of my butt. It wasn't even real.
The first thing that ran through my mind was Point Break.
Which is a great movie.
That is a great movie. I am an FBI agent.
Johnny Utah. All right, so in this episode, they go to another planet. It's Eden, and they're going to a garden. And I think Dandy goes, "Oh, I see what you did. That's stupid." They calls out the dumb joke.
Yes.
Anyway, there's two aliens that live there. One likes underwear. One likes vest. The underwear one gets Dandy. The vest one gets
I
Meow.
loved this.
And they join in this this ancient culture war between
They
these
even
two
get
aliens.
like swept up in it, and they start fighting. It's so dumb.
And they're the
but
last of their race. Each
Yes.
one, and they're still
So-
fighting.
So like it's you have the underwear people and the vest people. There's like an underwear
mean
person and a vest person. Yeah, just one. Yeah.
The people are all dead.
Yeah, you're right. It's just one of each, right? So like it's Adam and Eve, basically. It's Adam and Eve. I was dying because it's like they continued to play with the idea of the Garden of Eden that they were joking about before,
Right.
but in the most loose possible application. I just love the way these creatures talked too.
I also like the idea
So
of,
gross.
to an alien's point of view, or someone from outside the world, do the things that people kill each other over
Yes,
seem as stupid as a vest and a
absolutely.
because it's definitely stupid, right? It's so stupid, and they kill themselves. They don't even manage to kill each other. They brain
Yes.
themselves with rocks.
Yes.
Like it's meant to be the stupidest war ever.
It is, yeah,
and
Mission
being
accomplished.
commentary, but it's commentary about
yeah,
yeah.
yep.
And so they have doomsday weapons, and they blow up the planet when they're dying. And
Oh come on!
QT
You can't skip them like almost making a peace treaty, but in order to finish the peace treaty, they have to put on each other's clothes, and it's just too
there's also
much.
one other thing I don't want to skip is when they go to bed and they have to share a bed, and the alien's like,
It's a
"What's
heart-shaped
weird
bed."
about you and me sharing a heart-shaped bed?"
Yeah.
I mean, that made me laugh.
Yes.
Right, yeah. So QT's like, "Hey, let's have a peace agreement because if we register these aliens, we'll get paid. And the only way they'll leave the planet is if they're at peace. So let's do a peace accord." And they actually agree to it so that they can both go like visit. One wants to visit boobies, and one just wants to be like Dandy. Is what I got. And they even sign it, and they shake hands. But then they have to exchange their most favorite item according to galactic law, and so they have to exchange the underwear and vest and put it on, and they get angry and start fighting.
Yeah, it's just too much. They can't.
But then, yeah, the planet blows up. QT just leaves, but he throws back the surfboard. And so Dandy surfs the geyser exploding planet off into space. And that's the end. Like him in his underwear, Meow clutching to his legs as he catches the big one, baby.
Yeah.
In more beautiful animation.
Sure.
I love that his pompadour, like is gone. It's just like wavy hair now. And I like this. I like the shot. The story, well, I get the point. It's stupid for the purpose of being stupid.
Well, and it even has like, I loved the fact that when they did fight, like it was on schedule. There was literally a giant clock in the center of the
that's
town
right.
area, and the clock would go up, and they'd see each other, and they'd like run to their spaceships, get up, circle around for a few minutes until the clock was like, and then okay, I guess we'll go fight again tomorrow.
And aren't their weapons like super weak? So that's why the wars lasted forever. They can't kill each other because their weapons are like really weak.
Yeah, makes you wonder, like, how did everybody else die when they're this inept?
All right, then we come to my favorite episode. This one was like, I like a lot of them. This one was special to me. It's the racing episode. So Dandy's at Boobies, and how dare you, sir? Dandy is at Boobies, and the waitresses are all excited, but it's not for him. It's for this hotshot space racer named Prince, and he is drawn with long, flowing 80s anime hair. He looks like an 80s anime character. He's from a different anime, clearly. He looks like he's straight up Voltron.
Yep. I thought he was just another racer from Speed Racer. Like, I was just...
Well, yeah, and this is clearly making riffs on Speed Racer. I love that instead of just at the middle point, it says Space Dandy and breaks the scene like 10 times throughout the episode, like old 80s and Speed Racer would do, right?
Yeah, they did, yeah.
So yeah, they go all in on this bit, and so Dandy's like, we're becoming a racer, and Prince is the best.
He's doing it because he's jealous of the attention he's getting from girls.
Of course.
Yep. I can beat Prince.
And the race starts.
Okay, before the race. Oh, okay, go ahead.
No, what do you got?
Oh, no. My favorite part, which there's not very many, but my favorite part of this episode is his side. So he has similar sidekicks to Dandy. He's got a robot. But instead of a cat, he has a mouse. And my favorite part about this mouse is it's drawn nearly identical to Mickey Mouse.
Yes.
And he's a lawyer.
And he's an evil
his
lawyer.
First threat is that he's going to sue them. That almost got a laugh out of me. I was very impressed with that. That was good.
So the race starts. And Dandy says it's time for our last resort.
Yes.
Because he's dead last.
And okay, so the joke is he says this like four times throughout the episode. Yeah. It's good. And every time his last resort is like he's the evil Dastardly and Muttley in the back. He's blowing up razors and bouncing off explosions. He's magneting them and writing. The rest of the series, like Dr. Jail gets involved.
Okay, I have a question. What was the joke? Like, I didn't understand why, like, where it was, like, was there a reference to it? There's this, like, sexy looking racer that doesn't speak the language. And she starts doing these poses, and the announcer has to, like, cover up her naughty bits.
Yeah.
I didn't
She was flashing the crowd, and the narrator's like, nope, that's not what she's doing. Trust me. She's clearly...
I had no idea what that might be referencing or why it's funny.
Maybe it's referencing the pretty girls that are always near sports cars. They always take shots with them.
She was a racer.
I don't know.
Well, she's also like a
dominatrix.
Yes,
she was.
Dominatrix trope.
Yeah.
Yeah, her ship
which
was
maybe that
like
was
a high
used
heel.
back in those times.
Yeah. I don't know if it had any like application to necessarily racing. But yeah, I think the joke might have just been her character design.
That also made me laugh.
Yeah, me too.
The last resort one made me laugh the most, though, especially QT. Like, we just started. What are you doing?
Yeah, and how QT would get more and more angry every time, like more shocked and like, stop doing last resort. You gotta be out.
They have to go through all these gates, and eventually, like, Dandy gets ahead at first, and then they have to refuel, and so he gets behind again. And a bomb is placed on his ship during the refueling, and also Meow put food because he doesn't know what refueling means, so he puts food in the gas.
Just gotta fill it up,
which is important.
Yep.
And then they go through more gates, and it's very classic, like, oh, Dandy, you're making me race harder than I've ever done before. Yep. And they dump out all the unnecessary cargo, including their own robots. and they're
And
going neck and neck.
he gets in a mech fight with another couple mech racers.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have time to do all this, and then he still catches up.
Yep.
Yep.
But it's because of all the explosions.
Yeah,
right.
Last resort. He had the last resort.
Yeah, his last resort, you know.
Well, it's fourth last resort.
Yes. The explosions, just seeing him bounce from ship to ship to ship that he exploded killed me. I loved that. That was the best. That was the best form of like last resort acceleration I've ever seen. It was so good.
And then him and the racer get like all
And
tangled
he
up.
would always have a clever like phrase or name for it. Like, I call this my explode myself into first place.
Yes.
It's just noxious.
You're remembering this even better than me. You watched it sooner too. I guess I should say you probably watched that today or yesterday?
No, well, I started Wednesday, and I think I watched like 3 or 4 episodes a day. So,
well, thank God you didn't do it all in one day. That would have been crazy.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the ending is the racers are neck and neck. They're clashing against each other, tied up against each other, and the not Mickey for legal reasons triggers the bomb, and that propels Dandy, but also triggers the wonton in his gas. But also at the same time, Prince was discovering what love is, and he gets rammed from behind and screams out in very happy tones. And then Dandy goes faster than thought and lands like I wrote it down 56 billion years in the future and finds a statue of Dandy.
Yeah.
I
was like, this is so what is the term? Like where it's just dumb. It's absolutely nuts. Well, it's not just dumb. It's like
really
having
dumb.
a normal it's like having a normal story where you're just continuing along the trajectory of the story, and then all of a sudden you go epic, and there's no justification for it. There's no explanation for it. You just decide we are going epic, and that's like what they did there.
I don't think epic is the word. I'd use non sequitur.
Maybe. I think epic is pretty appropriate here because it goes like 56 billion years. That's just, it may not work. Like the storytelling doesn't actually work, but I think that's part of the beauty of it. So yes, I liked this.
Okay. Next up, I loved it. I loved all the references. I used to watch Speed Racer, the cartoon, as much as I love the movie. Can't miss a shout out to that. Sorry. My dad used to watch the original Speed Racer. That was like probably the first anime I ever watched, not knowing it was anime at the time. You know, eventually Dragon Ball Z came along and all that stuff. But yeah, he showed me Speed Racer, and then I realized later, like, oh, I watched an anime with my dad. That would never happen today. But that was a cool thing. Anyway, next episode, Garbage Planet. Dandy finds a dog and becomes best friends with it. Names it Pup. Meow gets jealous. The dog dies.
Why is this funny?
Because it's so like for me, I'm laughing right now because of your expression. Like seeing how much
the dog died was not funny.
I'm so confused. Like, A, how did an Earth animal get on this planet? B, why are we sending this corpse into space on a rocket?
Love. It was his way of showing love for the animal. So, like.
Also, like, why are we having this story? Like, they meet it, and then 5 minutes later it croaks. Like,
okay, so the second half of the episode I thought was kind of silly and light and didn't really matter. This first half,
this was heavy duty.
The ending, when they mentioned the real dog, the first dog that was sent into space, and then remembering what the dog had said, I thought humans didn't want me anymore. They put me into blackness and then left me. Yeah, and then you're thinking about that real dog because they suddenly tied it into a real thing, and I'm like, no, we got John Wick NASA now. Oh god,
yeah. Exactly. No, I thought that was really good storytelling of like taking something in such a short period of time and creating an emotional connection with it, and then tying it to something in reality, and then that hits you. It hits you hard. It hit me hard. Then I started laughing hysterically at the two little green Indian guys, Native American guys. Yes, brother, we must flee this place. The spirit is leaving, brother.
During the episode with all the sad dog stuff happening, we see these two guys with green bodies in like grassy fields, but they're fleas. They're on the dog.
Yes.
When Meow hugs the dog when they die, they jump to Meow, and now they have fleas on the ship.
Yeah.
And
except they're a new rare species that they're trying to capture.
Yes.
Also, they're the only thing keeping the planet together. So when they left, when they get on the ship,
and they're the last of their kind.
Yeah.
Yes. So
You're thinking about how they died, aren't you?
No, I'm actually thinking about how Dr. Gel dies.
Okay.
So Dandy's blasting away. The planet's becoming a black hole. Dandy says the line, "I always wanted to die by extreme sucking," and I laughed so hard I spit food. I used to watch on my lunch. That's why. And then Dr. Gel comes in. And I didn't set this up, but in the beginning, Dr. Gel had a new device for tracking Dandy, but it's just a turntable for a DJ that fires all the missiles. And so when they get there and see the black hole, they're like, use the device, wicka, wicka. And they shoot the missiles in the black hole, does nothing, and they die. It was so stupid. It's a turntable. And there's like a tiny little radar to the left of it that shows that we're dangerous. Dandy kills one of the fleas by combing it into his hair with gel. So the other flea takes over QT to get revenge, and then they end up killing it anyway. That's the end.
Yep. Okay, so
the ending didn't live up to the middle.
Oh man! Why the turntable?
Just the absurdity of it.
Okay.
But the thing that really made this work for me was how when they were introducing the two flea guys, and the story that we had was focused on the dogs, but we kept getting these shots of these two flea guys, and it seemed like they were in a completely different environment, like you're saying, resting in grass with sunlight over their head and everything. And so that completely disrupted my connection to the dog, because it would get another part of my brain working on where are these fleas in relation to the dog, in relation to the world, what is going on here, what's the real story that's happening, and what are they trying to say, where are they going to take me in this storytelling. And so that kind of I don't know if it like took enough of my attention away from the dog or what, but I think that was actually very important in letting me have an emotional connection with the dog. There was something about how it disrupted my attention that made that work better. It's kind of weird, but I really liked it.
It was that the turntable goes wiki wiki. It wasn't just looking like a turntable. He literally
it really
did
was
the DJ move. All right, next episode. We're almost done, Jason. Meow has a new planet. They use the refurbished transporter. Oh, this is the best episode. This is the episode that's not my favorite. This was rough for me.
This was sad.
This one, it was the art style. Doesn't work for me very well. This is the one that made me feel a little queasy. But honestly, some of the most alien things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And they're like, these aren't aliens. These are plants.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they go to this new planet. They get teleported down. Dandy gets abducted. And these people are plants that have evolved to be sentient. And, like, they put them in... You could kind of tell because they put them in a cell that was literally a plant cell, a square.
Yeah.
And
then they shoved a tube up his butt.
They shoved a tube up his butt. Tried to feed him. He meets them, like he meets the daughter, the doctor he's helping. I had a hard time also following the story because everything was so bizarrely alien. But
Meow is getting just food dumped on him left and right.
Meow's about to be sacrificed. He's going the classic like. Hey,
Fatten
when
them up.
natives find you and start feeding you, make you fat, quit eating. It's not good. Danny, they want to get this thing that evolved all the plants that's in the North Pole. It's the alien he thinks he's looking for. And the doctor wants to study it, so he wants Dandy's help. And like the government steps in and it locks them up. But the daughter and like a singer that just shows up saves them. Like it's built like there's this big epic story, but everything's so abstractly weird because they're plants that it's just a bizarre telling of the story. Eventually they get there. He goes in with the daughter who gets huge because if you get close, plants get close to her, they get big. And he breaks it off and starts to grab it. It's thrown out. Yeah. And it kills all the mitochondria in the air that were flying on helping. And then the plants devolve back into normal plants. And that's the end. Dandy just gets back in his ship and leaves, and a coconut drops on his head. He has a palm tree in his ship. That made sense.
Mm-hmm.
I actually liked the philosophical message of just following orders can lead to genocide. Because, I mean, he literally killed off an entire planet of sentient beings by just doing what he was asked, no questions asked. I thought that was an interesting subplot. Now the execution of it, I did like the alienness of the plant planet. This was one of the more visually interesting episodes, and I liked this idea that a random space rock hits and it just happens to be like radioactive or whatever, and it just starts evolving the fauna and flora around in weird and interesting ways to where all of a sudden they gain sentience, and that the plants themselves, like, or at least the doctor, I don't know if it was all plants, but like they seemed to prefer non-sentience.
Yeah.
So
just wanted to go back. Yeah.
This was a high point for me.
Yeah. I really like this one, like you say, because of how alien it was. Like every time that they would give you the shots of him marching through the terrain with these plants, or they would show him like reclining on a big leaf or something, and the other plants is like a cucumber with vines coming off of it and stuff that's relaxing next to him, or the plant entertainer that shows up. And, you know, I'm as curious as he probably was, or at least as confused as he was about, like, what does that look like? What is a plant entertainer? You know,
right?
Does it have like bioluminescent bulbs or something? Like, what goes on here? And then also the connection that little daughter plant that was, you know, following him around and was like, yeah, Dandy, all right, yeah, you know, like his little cheerleader. And then seeing her, like she was the last one to go, and she didn't actually make the choice. Only one character made this choice and didn't tell anybody what they were doing. And that was that big giant doctor, her dad, right? And so for me, that hit hard of like, wow, this one guy made the choice for everybody. Of course, Dandy was the method of doing that. Like you said, Jason, you know, not thinking about what he's doing, just doing it. But seeing in her somebody who didn't get to make the choice and is disappearing. And that was really sad. So this one actually hit me emotionally too. So I'm surprised, but there's actually a few episodes that hit pretty good emotion wise, like very effective.
The art style very different in this one too. Like they clearly went for something. I can't even properly describe it. It's just weird. It was a weird art style, but it worked for with the storytelling and what they were going for.
You didn't even recognize what was happening, and all of a sudden here he is, just this huge fat cat. Just all the plants around him had died.
Yeah, everyone dies, and he's like
surrounded by mushrooms.
What's going on?
Yep.
And so then he gets on the thing
and mushrooms.
And then back on the ship, Dandy calls him a fatty. That was kind of mean.
How dare he? Admittedly, not knowing ages of the plants because they don't have any human features, I thought we were gonna go for a "you slept with my daughter" plot line in the the daughter plant starts crawling up on the bed with him. I'm like, oh no, don't do this. Don't do that.
Thankfully, they didn't.
I was
All right.
100% confident that when she went into the thing and started to grow bigger, that she was going to grow into like a humanoid shape and be attractive to him, but that fortunately didn't happen.
Yeah, that would have been funny though.
We thought it was going to be dandier than it was.
Yep.
In space.
The next episode, after the failure of a super weapon by the evil empire, and it shoots an energy beam to planet Betelgeuse, where the Dandy crew happens to be visiting after a mechanical failure to get a correction part, and they're staying with Meow's family, and Meow hasn't been home since he left.
And he makes it very clear he does not want to go back. He even says, "We need a mechanic. Let's hit the next planet, not this one."
Mm-hmm.
That night while they're sleeping, the energy hits, and then they do the day, and we see them they wander around town. They follow the dad to his work. The dad's a metal shop worker. He just makes screws and nuts.
No, he makes this contraption. It's like a little box. We see it at the very end.
Those parts go in the box. He only makes the screws and bolts for it. They actually don't know that it goes to that. It told us that it's what it was made for.
Is that the thing that was used, like the weapon that was used at the beginning that failed?
I think so.
And is that why he showed the broken screw? Like he held up the same broken screw that his son did?
Maybe he's bad.
Yes.
I like that. Yeah, but basically they go to a bar. And then this is a time loop episode.
Yeah.
Except for they don't figure it out because it's so monotonous and boring. They just think this is normal. And it says 88 days later, QT starts to question it, but they tell him he's stupid. And then 108 days later, they all realize that they know what's about to happen, and they have superpowers.
They're psychic. Yeah.
And the narrator's like, "No, you idiots, you're in a time loop." And that's how they figure out they're in a time loop.
They have to be told.
But they don't understand it for like another 120 days or something like that.
Yeah.
Guys, I love time loop stories. But every time loop story has what? This is happening again? Maybe on the second day you pretend like, okay, maybe I dreamed all this. And then the third day, wait, it's happening again?
Yep.
I love that they just were like, no. 108 days. that I found that a great subversion of the trope. I thought it was clever.
Yeah.
And mostly they're okay with being in a time loop, but then Dandy realizes he can't go to boobies. So he steals a spaceship and it blows up, but they still repeat. And eventually I was like, they're going to Google it. And they don't, but they do a forum post asking people what they should do. And then the forum post is like, you should just Google it. But they're told, just rip off the calendar page, which is funny because every time loop always shows you the calendar page, right? It's always the day calendar. And so they're like, wait, it's that easy? And then they can't rip it. That's where the energy went and why the time loop's happening. And eventually they ask the dad to help, and he uses his metal wielding. And Meow comes to appreciate his dad, and they're able to get out the day.
And his dad is happy for him to go and continue exploring because it's whatever Meow wants. This was like his character building moment.
Right, but I never got the impression the dad wasn't okay with it, but I felt like Meow...
Yeah.
Meow felt guilty because he had wanted to be like his dad and then had changed that, and I think he was ashamed of that.
Yeah.
I was so frustrated with especially some of the like character building moments for Meow, because like they would ask him a question about his past or his childhood, and he would start to answer it, and they're like, "Oh, he's so stupid."
Yes.
Or they'd be like, he would start to say something intelligent about like why he is the way it is, and he's like, "Oh, read the thing again where he says he's gonna be just like his dad."
Yes. Well, that's when you have bad friends. Like,
all right.
I
want to know something, Jason. The joke that made me laugh the hardest, I want to know if you saw it coming. When he asked the waitress out, and she's with the barmaid.
I didn't
No, I
either.
didn't.
That-
I 100% thought she was with. So earlier, there's a shot of like a dude on her lap, like his head on her lap, and she's
Okay.
like stroking. I 100% thought like, hey, she's married already, right?
Mhm.
But then like, I'm in love with the. I was like, whoa, okay, that came out of left field.
Yep.
Very hard.
I actually laughed really hard at that one because it was like inserting the most ridiculous, like forcing it in there. Like it didn't. There was no explanation for that.
Nope, it was just a completely random. Nope,
Yes.
we're in love. Deal with it.
Yeah.
Nice.
I did find
trying
it
for growth, meow.
Yeah.
I did find it God, it wasn't that funny, but I did find it humorous that basically the town is like the bad part of Hokkaido, and like the daughter is like this irresponsible, almost snarky like schoolgirl, and she's got
Smoking.
like the cigarette sticking around. Like, I need money for a book. Well, you should already buy it. We can take the bus. Oh, I don't want to take the bus.
Yep.
What? This is gonna be stuck in my brain for literally weeks.
It's that good.
No, it's just that's how I retain information is through video format.
Ah.
They point out though that like the end of the episode ends them doing exactly what they were doing at the beginning of the episode. They're like their life is a time loop. It doesn't matter. All right, next episode, Dr. Jail gets yelled at by his boss, but he's too busy figuring out a calculation. Oh, this is the library planet. The boss, the admiral or the general wants to take over.
Yep. Oh no, you're right. This is. Yep. Sorry, I was reading it wrong.
Yep, library planet. Evil general wants to take over the library planet because he has an overdue book, but the book has been stolen. The book was stolen by Space Dandy. Dandy has tried to turn in an alien, but you can't take it out of the box or you'll forget what the alien is. And Scarlet doesn't believe him. She opens the box. All the color gets saturated out of the picture. An alarm goes off, and then they find a book inside the box. I thought it was just a piece of paper, but it was actually a whole book. And a ticket to a planet. They go to Boobies. They learn what the ticket says. So then they
For
go
some
to
reason, Honey can read it, but the
Honey.
robot can't.
Right. He's just a vacuum cleaner, man.
Mm-hmm.
The ticket says they get free food and drink on the library planet, so they go there at the same time.
And all the books you can read.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Well, the reason it matters is because Dandy keeps making that joke. He's like, I don't care about the reading. I want the food and booze.
Nothing tastes better than free food, baby. They get there at the same time as Dr. Jill's fleet. They actually have a big space battle. And then
Where did Dandy get this doomsday weapon on his ship? This did not make sense to me at all. He blew up multiple carriers or, corvettes in one sweeping shot. It's like, but he barely has power to do his warping. Like,
Well, he was under the influence of the parasite for 6 months, so I wonder if it.
So that upgraded his ship. Got it.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
First time seeing anime, man.
Especially this one.
It gave me Robotech vibes of like one ship firing the missiles. You just see the boom, 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 and everything just blows up in the distance.
Yep.
Okay, library planet. They get teleported down the library planet. They explore around, and then they eventually
This is what
find
you
out
call service.
QT eats a bunch of data. They find out that the book they're carrying is the alien and is the head librarian of this planet, and has been altering their memories to manipulate them to carry her across the universe because she's actually just like this little teen girl and she just wanted to see the universe so bad. And they rescued her from from the general, Dr. Jill's boss. So that's why they stole her, but they don't remember that they did that. And then she turns on the planet's defenses and blows up Dr. Gel's fleet. But Dr. Gel has figured out this secret formula by seeing the boobies that Space Dandy drew on the card, or the ticket. Anyway, she steals that information from him, puts it in herself, and then thanks them and gives them a reward. And so we go back. She has a box. He's turning it into Scarlet. This time there's a videotape in it. And then the narrator's like, and this led to a galactic war that destroyed everything. But no one remembers it.
Yep.
The next episode, Space Dandy has to catch the chameleon.
This is my favorite episode.
Scarlet is mad that they're turning in cheap aliens because it takes way too much paperwork for the money they're getting. And she tells them, go find her this rare alien. So they go to, and this is the official planet name, planet that looks like it has chameleons.
Yes.
Come on, that's a funny joke in episode 12 when they've named every planet.
I was too busy being upset that the robot found a love of fishing.
Yeah, that was good too.
Yeah, they go fishing for chameleons. Now they've been using fishing poles this whole time. That it's a recurring
That's
thing.
true.
Space Dandy uses fishing poles for his job.
Episode 1, it's how he caught Meow.
Yeah. So they go fishing for chameleons, and QT's like, we're not looking for chameleons, but they fish for them anyway. And then QT finds a love of fishing, and we get the QT fishing journal. They eventually catch a chameleon, and they turn it in. And Scarlet's like, this is a chameleon. I don't wanted an alien. But QT had caught a black
something
lizard thing. Yeah. And it shapeshifts in its shell. And the next morning they're like, hey.
What?
QT has a blog now, and so he's going to post, his pictures of his catch on his blog.
Yep. I love the fact that there's just this Asian guy walking around the ship.
That middle-aged 40-year-old guy, 50-year-old guy in the background.
He's like drinking, and it's almost like he's mocking them too, like the whole time.
I was this close to going, oh, that's kind of funny. It was real close. But then the joke just went on too long. Because it was like, you have those moments in anime where like they're like questioning, okay, well, if you didn't do it and you didn't do it, and strange person I've never seen before didn't do it, who could it? Oh, strange guy. No, they didn't get to strange guy until like 10 minutes later.
No. I fully disagree.
Yeah, I love
this joke is like the fact that they have everybody sound off 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. But that's so they know something's wrong. But the fact that there's just a new guy standing there isn't what's wrong. The fact that
they go
4
marching
people is what's
through
wrong.
the ship together.
Yep. Okay. So we get these. They keep turning in the wrong double. Like they turn in Meow again. This is like the third time Meow's been scanned. But it's the right Meow instead of the chameleon. They come back and they're sitting on a sofa that we've never seen before. And they get up and leave and they're like, wait, when did we get a sofa? And the sofa runs away. The best one though is they come in and there's a boom box. They put in the tape and it's the chameleon alien. They turn on the boom box. And he's like, hey, baby. Hey, baby. and Dandy goes, must be the live version. I hate this. Turning it off.
I loved it. I loved every bit of it.
He can play the tape, but he has to speak in his voice to make it work. That's funny. That's so funny.
It's irritating because it's like, one, as soon as they walk in the room and you see how the boom box is drawn, you're like, oh, there it is.
Right. It's in the same spot the couch was. It didn't. He went right back to the same spot.
But then the other question is like, why do we have tapes in the future in space travel? I don't understand this.
Because they're about to start an intergalactic war. We just learned
that.
Yeah,
we just went over that.
VCRs and cassette tapes are starting a war.
This is the only episode that actually continues from the last episode.
All right.
Okay.
Eventually, it turns into Scarlet, and they grab the wrong Scarlet, so now they're banned from the alien industry. And then it turns into Dandy. And then they do, remember, this is 2014, which I still don't think is topical. They do Who Wants to Be a Millionaire for the Dandy quiz, and they have to answer questions about being dandy.
You did forget that the undertoned Dr. Gel side plot is he's got a new device that he can,
right?
He's going to grab Dandy from across space-time.
Yeah,
that's right.
He's got a super powerful device that could just grab Dandy this time. They'll definitely get him. You guys have ever seen Phineas and Ferb?
Yes.
And every time there's the side story where the evil doctor's making a thing, and it's gonna
Doofenshmirtz.
It's definitely gonna erase what Phineas and Ferb did, so they don't get in trouble every single time.
Perry.
Dr. Gel is Dr. Doofenshmirtz to Dandy.
I can see that.
Anyway, eventually though, the dandies are answering both questions, but one dandy's like being nicer to the crew, so they're like, we like that dandy better. It's probably not dandy, but
yeah,
what's the difference? Can we just keep that one? But then both dandies are so confused, they don't know which one's the real one.
Yeah.
And so they decide, who cares, baby? They're dandy. They just go about living their lives as double dandies until one gets abducted by Dr. Gel, turns into a second Dr. Gel, driving Dr. Gel insane.
Uh-huh.
And it says, chameleons, what are you going to do?
Yep. Loved it.
And then Dandy goes to boobies.
Yep.
All right, and then the final episode is about QT falling in love with a coffee machine, but she's in love with a cash register, and this leads to a robot revolution where he's trying to stop the cash register, who has joined the revolution for the sake of the coffee maker, and he turns into a kaiju and battles a giant evil robot. However, the revolution is led by an evil toaster, which has got to be a shout out to the brave little toaster. It's just got to be. It looks just like him. And for us 80s kids,
you missed the
most of it.
I'm a robot. I don't drink coffee, but because I'm trying to impress this girl, I'm gonna go ahead and drink coffee, and then it makes him go on the fritz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like at the very end too, where he knows that he can't get her. It's like in the memory of her now. That's sad. This is another one of those where it's like, even though it's silly and even though it has its like action scenes and everything, it comes across more as a emotional storytelling attempt. And it was pretty effective. It was good.
And I thought the kaiju battle looked great.
I did too.
I'll have to say, the scene where he takes her out to the edge of town and they see the ships coming in and watching the city and the flying, the vehicles and all that was really, really pretty.
We also get small shots of Dandy and Meow wondering where QT is, but every time the ship's messier and messier because QT is no longer cleaning for them and they're just complete slobs, so the garbage is just like getting higher and higher every time. That was a nice little detail. All right, that brings us to the end of season 1. I do feel, especially since they call out this is the end of season 1, where we'll be back in season 2. I wish they had flipped this one and the last one.
Because the last one,
the duo strong. Dandy, I thought would be a better halfway point or season finale, because it was very silly, very much going into the weeds of what Space Dandy is, whereas this one felt a little more streamlined and only focused on T. It felt very much a side story, which was weird to end the season on.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other thoughts? Jason, you remember any other jokes?
It's funny you mentioned Phineas and Ferb, because I remember really liking it. I didn't laugh at that show, but I really liked that show watching it with my kids.
2 more seasons. And it got renewed.
Nice.
40 more episodes. Woo. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
But there are jokes in there that I do laugh at, especially with Doofenshmirtz. He's probably one of my favorite characters. Anyways, It's interesting that you mentioned because it's similar format. You've got this basically the same thing that happens every time. You've got corny jokes going on throughout the episode, but I guess it's just it wasn't.
But Phineas and Ferb aren't D-bags.
Right. That's probably what it is.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to our final reviews. Jeremy, this was your pick. What do you think?
I love it. I think this is great comedy. It is not formulaic or standard comedy. It is like shocking left turns. You don't know where they're gonna go most of the time. And I'm talking also about like the storytelling in general. Like it likes to surprise you. It likes to give you real alienscapes, which I don't see really often. And I always, whenever I do see it, I love it. Like Sunny Boy, Land of the Lustrous, Paprika. I love the worlds that they present because they're so alien and so interesting. And I thought this did it more than once. There were a couple of times where I was really intrigued by places that Dandy was visiting. And yet, even with that alienness, they still managed to maintain the type of humor that I at least find pretty funny. So yeah, I really like this. I recommend it. If it's not really up your alley, maybe try a drink or something and then watch it. But I'd give it a 5.
All right, Jason, how about you?
It was pure agony getting through every episode. I just the jokes never landed. The silliness for silliness' sake just is not the stuff that I like to watch as far as comedy. The character's a D-bag. I can't stand that pompadour 70s/80s look, especially like in the Japanese style. It just hits wrong, and I just dude. Just that self-importance and like I'm gonna chase tail all day.
It's a tool. It's based. I mean, literally, he's a tool. Like you see a guy with a pompadour in anime, it's like, oh, that character's a tool. Like you just know.
Right, but they're usually an antagonist that gets their butt kicked, right?
Or a backup comedy, sideline comedy character sometimes, yeah.
Because there was no real story or no real, I felt nothing mattered. Therefore, there was no connection or anything to anchor me to any of the characters. I just didn't find any of the story beats interesting or funny. I mean, there were a couple episodes I did find interesting. I mean, at least stuff I was able to pull out. But as a whole, like you said with that first episode, it tells you what it is, and I would have turned it off. I give this a 1. I just did not like it.
Do you think that if it is a multiverse and the story is something that is overarching and not stuck on like a specific Dandy or a specific universe, but there's something bigger being told, would that change your perception of it at all?
I might find it a little more interesting. However, because none of the episodic nature of it doesn't connect any of the Dandies together in a meaningful way. So it might change my opinion a little bit, but not much.
Okay.
Before I give my score, I'm going to reveal the other half of my secret that I wanted to talk about. So, like I said, the general director came from Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo, but the regular director would go on from this to direct the first season of One Punch Man. But more importantly to me, and it's funny because Jeremy actually just mentioned it, when he got his own anime project to be the head of, he made Sunny Boy. So this is the link between Cowboy Bebop and Sunny Boy, which to me is like, oh baby. So this is
give Sunny Boy a good score, did I?
You hated Sunny.
Yeah, you hate Sunny Boy.
It was too much artistic for you, which is kind of kind of where I'm jiving with this. It has that culture mixing and trying different things that like Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo do, and it has that alien and bizarreness from Sunny Boy and mixing together in a very silly, no holds barred, blank check. We can do whatever we want. Let's paint the walls red with blood. I don't know if those analogies are actually meshing together, but I had a blast watching it. I kind of knew I would, but like I said, because the first episode sells what it's coming so well, I knew I would enjoy it. I did. There's highs and lows, but I just enjoy what it's doing. It's if you can't tell how much I've laughed just remembering it tonight, which I do feel bad about, Jason. This was a highlight for me, and I'll be finishing it. I'm gonna finish the rest of the series. So.
Oh, that's too bad.
All right. With that done, now our next anime coming up will be Gintama, the first 12 episodes of the first season. Another comedy anime, another comedy legend in the anime community. So we will be checking that out. So we hope you tune back in to listen to that. If you have thoughts on Space Dandy, a dandy guy in space, please reach out to us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, our website, theanimebakaclub.com, or wherever you found this podcast, and the comments should get back to us. So we look forward to hearing your thoughts. I especially would love to hear more from more people who didn't enjoy it, because this is kind of known as one of the pinnacles of anime. I think that's my general impression of what people think. This is
very high,
very
high on the My Anime list.
Right, it's well received, well loved.
Really?
Yeah, you're very much in the minority here, man. But I definitely see how it's not going to gel with everyone, and I would love to hear more from people who are like, why it doesn't work for them, where the disconnect is. Jason's checking. He is looking at bizarre
I'm in disbelief. This is a 7.8. This is not even in the top 200.
That's pretty.
That's pretty high. Comedy doesn't usually get that high.
All right. Yeah. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to jump in and join the Bucket Club and with your comments.
Tell me how wrong I am.
Yeah, that is also fine, but I think we've had enough of that. All right, let's say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
See you next time, baby. In space.
Oh, God.